Hello, everyone, and welcome to the channel. I am Dr. Jane, your favorite psychologist. Our big conversation for today is the limbic system, and we're still in the vein of looking at the anatomy of the brain. In the limbic system, so the big deal for the limbic system is this regulation of emotions as well as behavior. Remember, human beings are social creatures. And so, because we are social creatures, we must be able to recognize an emotion in others, but also recognize that emotion in ourselves. And we must be able to recognize it in someone so that we can respond appropriately. And then we have to recognize it in ourselves so that we can respond appropriately to the situation, whatever it is. And so our limbic system does that for us, right? And so this limbic system is a part of our brain, and it's a group of interconnected structures in our brain. And it's used to regulate our emotions as well as our behavior. Now, some books that you look at, you will see there are more pieces or more components to the limbic system. This is kind of the abridged version for our limbic system. You see this structure here? It's called our hypothalamus. Our hypothalamus is what produces hormones, and those hormones regulate sleep. It manages our mood. It manages hunger, thirst, sexual arousal, blood pressure, body temp, as well as heart rate. This is a big deal because when you look at sleep, let's take that for an example. Sleep, if a person did not get enough sleep, it's difficult for them to concentrate, it's difficult for them to focus. If their circadian rhythm is not, and circadian rhythm is what we call our sleep wake cycle. If their sleep wake cycle is not intact, it affects their ability to do so many other things, because then I can't, I may start a task, but I may not finish the task because of my difficulty or inability to focus, give attention to that task, or concentrate. Mood, hunger, these different things um, that we don't think about, but influences how we behave and how we respond. The next part is our amygdala. And the amygdala display a role in how we experience emotion and how we experience feelings such as anger, fear, anxiety. It also plays a part in memory, social interpretation, so information about others. So if I am looking at a person and I'm trying to read that person, that is our social interpretation as we gather information about others, the people around us, so that we can either respond properly or we may have to leave because the person may um, trigger some sort of anxiety or fear or even anger inside of us. And so we have to make a decision. Am I going to stay in this space? Or am I going to walk away from this person? Thalamus. This is another big one. In the video for the eight senses, Please go back and look at that video when we talk about our senses. Our senses, and I'll do a deeper dive into each of those senses. Um, the processing of sensory information is a big deal. I'll give you an example. When you walk into, let's say, a mall, and they're baking cookies, how did you know that they are baking cookies? We retain the different types of smells in our memory. And so we know exactly what the smell of cookies smell like. And we know exactly what the smell of burnt cookies smell like. They're still cookies, but it is two different types of cookies, right? One is great and scrumptious, and the other one is burnt, and we may not want to eat that. And so when you think about the different senses, you guys, we store all of those senses in our memory. Um, let's talk about sound. Let's do that one. And I use this same example in the last video, but I think it'll hit different as we're talking about memory. Um, so you hear this person screaming. How do you know that that person is screaming? How do you know that that is a scream? And then you have to be able to discriminate the emotion that goes along with that sound. Is that person screaming because they're happy? Are they screaming because they're angry? Are they screaming because they're in shock or they're scared of something? What is the emotion that is attached to that sound that we hear? And we have to be able to discriminate that sound that we hear so that again, we can respond appropriately if we have to run away, if we are in danger, if we are, oh, this is what's happening in my environment right now. And so we have a level of awareness. Absolutely important. Another example, you're at home, chilling on your, I don't know, couch, minding your own business, and you hear a car drive by. And then you think to yourself, that car sped by, it drew by fast on the block, but you didn't see the car. Mind you, as you were sitting there, you hear the hum of cars going all the time. But because this car is going fast, you're like, oh, this car is going fast. But you didn't see it. You heard it. And you were able, from your living room, without seeing the car speeding down the block, you were able to discriminate the fact that this car wasn't driving the normal speed, it was speeding down the block. All of these things are so essential as we are navigating our world. They're there for us to be able to know how to respond and what to do. And so your thalamus processes our sensory information, and it helps with our memory, it helps with our planning, and it helps with our emotions. The other one that's part of the limbic system is our hippocampus. And this is our ability to form new memory. This is important when we're talking about our ability to complete a task, our ability to form relationships, and so forth. And so these are the big structures of our limbic system. And I have this one down here. I really like this diagram that came from the Cleveland Clinic. Um, Emotions, behavior, motivation, memories, our autonomic nervous system. And our limbic system manages um, the processing of all of those things. And so the limbic system work together with other regions of the brains, and I wanted to briefly talk about that. Um, because okay, you have your limbic system here with your emotions, with fear, with the different types of emotions. And it talks with, the frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex, the front part of the brain to say, okay, this is how you're going to respond at this time to this particular situation. Oh, you're angry, but you cannot have an outburst, right? Or you may not be able to experience motivation because you want to complete this task, but you don't have the motivation to complete the task. This is where we see the limbic system interact with other areas of the brain, to do a myriad of tasks and activities. And so remember, the limbic system is there, and it helps in the processing and managing of emotions, behaviors, motivation, memory, and thoughts. Incredibly important for our existence. And so remember, as we are watching these videos, the big idea, um, looking at brain development and how it shows up in our lives, and looking at it, at some of the outcomes when we experience parental betrayal, when we experience um, this idea of you're not grown at 18, and we do things during that transition between 18 to 24 that we may not, um, should have done, that we may not, that was not a good idea at the time. Our ability to regulate our emotions, our ability to have motivation, all of these things is so essential in our daily lives. And sometimes we experience things and events and so forth that affects our ability to be motivated, that affects our ability to regulate our emotions, that affects our ability to understand the nuances of our experiences. Because sometimes, dependent on brain development, it influences our cognitive ability and our cognitive capacity in different areas for us to be able to navigate our world, for us to be able to understand our experiences, for us to be able to make meaning of the experiences that we have, and so that we can say, I will not do that again. Oh, no. I will ensure that my children have a different experience. Mm, Maybe that wasn't a good idea, right? And so, as you watch these videos, I'm hoping that you will be able to take away different things from them and make meaning of your experiences. So, thank you for watching. My name is Dr. Jane, and I am your favorite psychologist. If you have any stories that you would like to share um, on the channel, please send them to parental betrayal at 500 I'm sorry, parentalbetrayal500 at gmail.com. If you have stories about your transition between 18 to 24, 25, and you did things that you had no business doing, and you're willing to talk about how those things impact your life going forward, please submit those stories, email them to me. Again, thank you so much for watching, and my name is Dr. Jane. Thank you again.